श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भाम् नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतः तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः. We continue with the exposition of the Tirumantrartha Prakaranam. Sutra number 112. இவ்வடிமைதான் ஒழிவில் காலமெல்லாம் உடனாய் மன்னி என்கிறபடியே சர்வதேச சர்வகால சர்வாவஸ்தையிலும் அனுவர்த்திக்கும். இனி இந்த கைங்கரியத்துக்கு தேசகாலாதி நியமம் இல்லாமை அருளிச் செய்கிறார். இவ்வடிமைதான் என்று தொடங்கி, அதாவது இவ்வாத்மாவினுடைய ஸ்வரூபானுரூபமான புருஷார்த்தமான இந்த கைங்கரியந்தான் ஒழிவில் காலமெல்லாம் உடனாய் மன்னி என்று ஒழிவில்லாத காலமெல்லாம் சர்வதேசத்திலும் உடனாய் சர்வாவஸ்தையிலும் பிரியாது நின்று, இந்த சர்வாவஸ்தையிலும் பிரியாது நின்று என்கிறபடியே சர்வதேசத்திலும் சர்வ காலத்திலும் சர்வாவஸ்தையிலும் நடந்து செல்லும் என்கை. So what is the ultimate objective that a Jivatma or individual soul who is subservient to the Supreme Lord in all respects looking for? He is looking for kainkarya or servitude unto the Lord in sarvadesha, sarvakala, sarva avasthayalilu, which means at all times, in all places, and in all states of existence. Avastha means state of existence. So even for one moment, even in one location, of course, is it possible for the Jivatma to be in several locations at the same time? If the question is asked, it is mentioned that the Jivatma also will become like the Supreme Lord in 8 aspects. In the Chandogya Upanishad, in the final chapter, that is the 8th chapter, it is said that the Jivatma who becomes liberated and according to our Sampradayam enters the portal of Vaikuntha acquires 8 important qualities which are exclusive to the Lord. Apahata papma, vijaraha, vimrityuhu, vishokaha, vijighatsaha, apipasaha, satyakamaha, satyasankalpaha. Apahata papma means he has overcome all the sins. Then vijaraha, there is no question of old age. And vimrityu, there is no question of death, because he has already transcended the cycle of births and deaths. So there is no question of death at all, because he is not born at all. Only if he is born with a body of this kind, then he has to leave the body. Since it's a divine body that he has acquired, and which is not, he is not as such born, there is no question of death, and therefore there is no question of old age also. This is a result of apahata papma. That means he has overcome all the papma or papa. It means sins. So papa is also including punya, which is generally translated as virtue. That is, whether the translation as virtue is correct or not, that's a different issue which we will not discuss now. It means that which arises by committing good deeds is known as punya. Papa is sin, which arises by committing bad deeds. So both punya and papa are actually binding the jivatma or individual soul. Therefore, one has to transcend both punya and papa. That's why it is said, tada vidvan punya pape vidhuya niranjanaha paramam samya upaiti. So when he actually becomes the grace of the recipient of the grace of the Supreme Lord, the individual soul transcends punya and papa. That is the fruits of good deeds and bad deeds. And then niranjanaha paramam samya upaiti. He becomes free from all sins or all bondages. And then he will become extremely similar to the Lord. So what is extreme similarity? This is extreme similarity in the sense he doesn't have any sins. Apahata papma, vijaraha, no question of old age, no question of death. Then vishokaha, no question of any misery also. So it's a very interesting thing that we have to note. In the Bhuma Vidya, in a particular Brahma Vidya called Bhuma Vidya, which also is mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad, there is a very beautiful conversation between Narada and Sanat Kumara. So Narada, who is the Devarshi, or he belongs to a class of great rishis. He, in his earlier state, asks Sanat Kumara, who is one of the most exalted sages. Let us, for the time being, keep it like that. He says, I have studied all the Vedas, all the Shastras, etc. I have heard from the great rishis that Shrutam hyeva me bhagavad drishebhyaha tarati shokam atmaviti. Once a person has the realization of the Supreme Lord, once he has the vision of the Supreme Lord, he will transcend all types of miseries. He will never become sad. No sadness of any kind, no misery of any kind. But I am undergoing misery. I am experiencing misery. Therefore, I have realized that I have not had the vision of the Supreme Lord. So, some person may think I know everything. I have had the vision of the Supreme Lord. He may tell himself or he may show himself off to others like that. But the thumb rule, as they say, is if you have had the vision of the Supreme Lord, you will never become sad. You will never experience any sort of misery. And the converse is also true. If you are having misery, if you are experiencing some sort of misery, that means you have not actually had the vision of the Supreme Lord. You have not had the Sakshatkara of the Supreme Lord. So this is the ultimate thumb rule that applies to all of us. Until we have the supreme vision of the Supreme Lord, we cannot overcome misery. And once we have the vision of the Supreme Lord, automatically misery will go. So that is what it says, Vishokaha. So the fourth quality is Apahata Papma, Vijaraha, Vimrityu. Vishokaha. Fourth quality is Vigataha, Shokaha, Yasmat. There is no question of misery at all hereafter. Any small, even an iota of misery will not be there. Vishokaha. Then two very important aspects, Vishok, Vijighatsaha and Apipasaha. He transcends hunger and thirst. So as far as a person is associated with a body like the human body or even animal body for that matter, he is affected by two very, very, very important afflictions. What are those afflictions? Hunger and thirst. So we see that in circuses, in our young days, we used to see in circuses, lions, tigers, elephants, they are all tamed. How are they tamed? So these bad human beings, what they will do? They will not feed them for 2 or 3 days, or 4 days, 5 days, etc. Whether it's a lion or a tiger or an elephant. So they become extreme hungry where they cannot overcome that. But the animals are not aware that they are hungry on account of this bloody fellow, this human being, who has actually captured them by unfair means. And after they experience extreme hunger, they are fed something, then they think that this human being is actually feeding us. He is doing a great favor to us. And that is how they become subservient to human. So it is with regard to hunger and thirst. Even as far as human beings are concerned, two most important unbearable pangs are the pangs of hunger and thirst. And if a person can to go without food or water for 2 or 3 or 4, 5 days or 6, 7 days, depending upon the human being, he will die. So though it is required to sustain the life in the body, these two are extreme pangs that any person cannot overcome, unless he is a yogi, of course. And when we are hungry, we become so angry. When we are thirsty, we become so angry. Why do we become angry? Because the body cannot sustain the pangs of hunger for a long time. Even while fasting on Ekadashi and other days, people are advised to do it in a gradual manner and not a sporadic manner. So these are all, let us not worry about too much going to this. So Vishokaha, Vijighatsaha, Apipasaha. He will be rid of hunger and thirst. Two most important afflictions that affect all beings, including human beings, more than others. It is also true with regard to animals. All animals, all, even plants for that matter. So these two are rid, or he is rid of these two things. Vishokaha, Vijighatsaha, Apipasaha. Then these are all absence of negative things until now. Apahata Papma, absence or ridding of bad deeds, sins. Vijaraha Vimrityu, he is rid of old age and he is rid of death. Then Apahata Papma, Vijaraha Vimrityu, Vishokaha, he is rid of misery, sadness. Vijighatsa Apipasa, he is rid of hunger and thirst. Then what all does he get? Satyakamha, Satyasankalpa. All his wishes are fulfilled and all his resolutions are made to come true. So in that state, if a Jivatma wants to take 10 bodies to serve the Lord, it is said like that. If a Jivatma wants to possess 10 bodies to serve the Lord, then yes, he is allowed to do that. If he wants to have 100 bodies, yes, it is also granted. If he wants to have 1,000 bodies to serve the Lord, yes, that is also granted. So, Sarvadesha, Sarvakala, Sarvavasthasu. In all states, at all times, in all places. So if he wants to serve the Lord in several places, several worlds, which are all divine, because the Vaikuntha has no end at all. It's so vast. So that's why Ramanujacharya says, Divya Varana Shata Sahasravrite, Divya Kalpakataru Pashobhite, Divyodhyana Shata Sahasra Koti Viravrite. It contains Shata Sahasra Koti, 100,000 billion, or Koti is 10 million. 1 Koti is 10 million. So you can imagine 100,000 into 10 million, how many? It means it is endless. So a person can serve in all places, in all states, at all times. That means there is no end at all for his wish to serve the Lord, and all those wishes are fulfilled in all manners. So in this context, the commentators also give one example from the Ramayana. So when in the Ayodhya Kanda, Rama and Sita are ready to go to the forest, Lakshmana says, I am also going to come with you. Then Rama asks, why? Then he says, Aham sarvam karishyami jagrataha swapatashyate bhavamstu sahavaidehyya girisanushuram syate. This is a very important and unique concept that is mentioned in the Ramayana. Especially it is commented upon by one of the great Purvacharyas called Nambillai, who preceded Pillai. And this Swami Nambillai has given several unique interpretations of the Ramayana, which is extensively available in the Edam Pattarayarupadi commentary, or the 36,000 commentary on the Tiruvayamozhi of Nammalvar, which is unique, very, very unique. And he has given several interpretations that are not given by any of the Sanskrit commentators at all. Generally, Ramayana is a work in Sanskrit, and it is commented upon by several Sanskrit commentators, including the great Govindaraja, who provided a Sri Vaishnava interpretation to the Ramayana. But the interpretations given by Swami Nambillai exceed all expectations, all set standards, and it is most unique in all respects. Here he gives a very beautiful interpretation. In general, in the Indian tradition, these traditions, unfortunately, I am not sure, are not available in the West, because I don't think this concept of family and the norms that prevailed with regard to the family, etc., are prevailing or prevailed earlier in the West. That doesn't mean that it is an inferior society or something like that. But I would like to say that the societal aspects were far, far more developed than West in the Indian context. So generally, when a married woman comes to her father's house or her parents' house for some time, which is a norm in the Indian context, she has to be sent back to her husband's house. So in those days, what they would do is, if she has come home, if the married woman, generally you can keep it as a recently married woman, comes to her father's house, her parents' house to visit them, and she has to be sent back to the husband's house after spending some time with her parents, with her brothers, sisters, etc. Because I don't think this concept exists in the West. I may be corrected if I am wrong. Then she is not sent alone, because even today in several families or several households, a woman is not sent alone anywhere, except when she is there along with her husband or parents. This is due to several reasons, including her physical security, etc. So when the daughter who has come to her parents' house is sent back to her husband's house, she is actually accompanied by an escort who will escort her to the husband's house and then come back. But if she has come to her parents' house with her husband, then the husband and the daughter and the son-in-law will actually leave from the in-laws' house and go to their house. So if she is accompanied by her husband, there is no problem. So that is how she is actually sent. If she is accompanied by the husband, no problem. She is sent with all love and affection and respect, etc. But there are exceptions to this. So the great commentator Swami Nambillai says, when actually he actually gives an opposite view with a specific reason in this regard. He says, when actually a married woman comes to her parents' house and is to be sent back to her in-laws' house or husband's house, it is okay to send her alone, because she is having the single-minded thought, or she is having a highly focused thought of reaching the destination, namely her husband's house, at any cost, without any distractions. So that is known as tapas. What is tapas? Without distracting, if you concentrate on one particular aspect or one particular entity, it is known as tapas. So that tapas, namely, she has nothing else on her mind other than reaching her husband's house and no distractions whatsoever. She will reach her destination without any problem, because that single-minded focus will protect her from all possible calamities or dangers, including physical protection. On the other hand, if she is to live with her husband, together with her husband, then only an escort is needed, because they may forget themselves in the company of each other. There is a very contrary view to the contrary given by Swami Nambillai, which is very much true in several cases. So he says, only husband and wife should not be sent to their house, because both of them in the company of each other will forget what they are doing. They will become totally distracted. So there has to be an escort. And it is with this view that Lakshmana says these words. He says, Aham sarvam karishyami jagrata swapatasthate. I will do all sorts of kainkariya or services to you, both when you are sleeping and when you are awake. Then what will you do? Bhavamstu sahavai deshya girisanusuram syate. You may enjoy yourself in the plateaus or in the various locations of the mountains rivers, etc., along with Vaidehi or along with Sita. So you both, if you forget yourselves, if you get totally distracted in each other's company, who will look after you? Therefore, I will come along with you to look after you. So aham sarvam karishyami. So aham sarvam karishyami means I will render all types of services to you. That's what he says. And in this context also, there is a very beautiful, important aspect that is to be noted in the Ramayana. So it will become an upanyasa discourse rather than Mumuksupadi Kalakshepam, as they call it, if I go into that detail. But I want to mention how Sri Vaishnava commentators have very beautifully rendered these things. So when Lakshmana actually accompanied Rama and Sita to the forest, he also gave up all the ornaments that all the princely ornaments that he was wearing. So since Kaikeyi, Dasharatha's last wife or third wife, insisted that Rama should go to the forest as a hermit, just like a hermit, possessing a jeta or a different tuft of hair, without any princely ornaments, and wearing what is known as the Valkala, or the cloth that is obtained by the bark of the trees. This is what was worn by the hermits in those days. So she insisted that he tapaso bhavatu. So she insisted that he should be in the forest like a hermit, having the tuft of hair and also wearing only the clothes that a hermit is supposed to wear, namely the clothes that are prepared from the bark of the trees. That means he should not wear any princely clothes like silk clothes or other clothes that are worn by rich people. So since Rama and Sita changed over to these type of clothes, Lakshmana also did. Then if they have to lead a life in the forest, what all do they require? Valmiki says, Kanitra pitaka dharaha. So he also equipped himself with implements like axe and shovel, etc. Shovel, spade, axe, etc. And then he followed Rama and Sita to the forest. But while actually describing the state of Lakshmana, Valmiki says, Lakshmano Lakshmi Sampannaha, he says. Then the meaning is Lakshmana, who was endowed with great prosperity. Then the question is asked, how is it that Valmiki is describing Lakshmana as Lakshmano Lakshmi Sampanna? Lakshmana who was endowed with great prosperity. Lakshmi means prosperity. He has not even worn his regular princely ornaments. He has given up all the ornaments. He has given up his tuft of hair just like a yogi and become like a yogi. He has given up even the clothes worthy of a prince, and he doesn't carry any money or any valuables. He is going along with a pickaxe, he is going along with a shovel and such other implements. Will a person who is carrying a pickaxe and a shovel and also wearing the clothes made of the bark of trees, can he be called as a prosperous person? He doesn't have any wonderful ring made of gold. He is not wearing the crown. He is not wearing any earrings made of gold or diamond. How can he be called as a person who is very much prosperous? This is one question. Second question is, this in the same Ramayana, in the Yuddha Kanda, Vibhishana has an argument with his elder brother Ravana. And when he tries to convince Ravana to give back Sita to Rama, and he fails in convincing Ravana to do so, he says, Utpapata Gadapanihi Chaturbhis Saharakshasaihi. So he, along with his mace and along with 4 of his followers, he jumps into the air and comes to the place. He crosses the ocean and comes to the place where Rama is stationed. And he says, Sarvaloka Sharanyaya Raghavaya Mahatmane Nivedayatamam Kshipram Vibhishanam Upasthitam. Oh, monkeys, kindly inform Rama that Vibhishana has come. Kindly inform Rama, who is the greatest of the souls, and Sarvaloka Sharanya. He is the person who is capable of giving refuge to all the worlds, all the people in the world. And then he says, Parityakta maya lanka mitrani cha dhanani cha. I have given up all my belongings in Lanka. I have given up Lanka. And I have given up all my friends. I have given up all my riches that belong to me, because he is the younger brother of Ravana, who is the king of Lanka. And Rama, in the Ramayana, the riches Ravana possessed, he says he exceeded the riches Ravana possessed, exceeded the riches that Kubera possessed. So he says, I have given up everything. And I have actually come here to as a refugee to the feet of Rama. So while describing Vibhishana, Valmiki uses the same word. He says, Antarikshagata Shriman. He says, Antarikshagata, he was standing in the sky. But how was Vibhishana? Shriman, endowed with great prosperity. Then the question is asked, how is it that Valmiki is once again describing Vibhishana as Shriman? He has just given up all the riches, all the exalted properties that he provided, all the exalted gold, silver, diamonds, emeralds, etc., that were in his possession. And he has just come here with 1 mace and 4 of his ordinary followers. How is it that he has mentioned as Shriman? Just as Lakshmana, Lakshmi Sampanna, Lakshmana, who is endowed with Lakshmi or great prosperity, when he is actually following Rama to the forest. How does Valmiki describe Vibhishana as Shriman, endowed with great prosperity, when he has given up all the riches? Then the answer is given by the Sri Vaishnava commentators. They say, the most prosperity, utmost prosperity is the will and the capacity to perform kainkariya, service to the Lord. There is no prosperity that exceeds the will and capacity to perform all types of kainkariya. Why are they saying so? The reason is, when a person possesses these riches like gold, emeralds, diamonds, money, properties, and also a kingdom, etc., he experiences a sense of contentment, a sense of happiness, a sense of ego also. But the happiness that is derived from serving the Supreme Lord at all times, places, and states far exceeds the happiness or contentment that is derived by having all these riches. You put all these riches on one side of the weighing scale, and you put the Kainkarya or the happiness derived from the serving the Supreme Lord on one place, on the other side. This will be much, much heavier or greater than all these riches put together. So it is very much in the fitness of things that though Lakshmana has given up all his princely belongings and come along with Rama with a pickaxe, a shovel, and a spade, etc., his happiness is much more than what a greatest of the great emperors can enjoy. Therefore, he says, Lakshmano Lakshmi Sampannaha, Lakshmana who is endowed with great prosperity. Similarly, in the case of Vibhishana, though he has given up all the Parityakta Maya Lankaratmani cha Dhanani cha, he has given up all the riches, he has given up all the belongings in terms of gold, silver, diamond, emeralds, sapphires, etc., etc., etc. He is still Shriman. He is endowed with great prosperity because he has come with the intention of surrendering to the Supreme Lord. So, even if a person has all these things, he will never get the idea or intention to surrender to the Supreme Lord by all means. So today we have several great rich people. Like, I don't know whether it is right to mention the names. You have the Bill Gates, you have Warren Buffett, you have Jeff Bezos, Amazon owner, that owner, Apple owner, or the Microsoft, former Microsoft chairman, or so many people who own billions and billions of dollars. But will they ever get the intention that I should surrender to the Supreme Lord by all means? 99.99% it will never happen, because they are so enamored about their money, they are enamored about multiplying their money by all means. When will they think about the Lord? When will they actually get the intention to surrender to the Lord, Supreme Lord by all means? They will never, it will never happen in their lifetime. It may never happen in their lifetime. It may happen also, we don't know that. But it's highly unlikely to happen. Therefore, that single-minded thought, that fully, supremely focused thought that a person, that comes to a person that I should actually surrender to the Supreme Lord by all means, exceeds the happiness obtained by possessing all types of riches in the world. Therefore, he says, Antarikshagata Shriman. So Vibhishana, who was endowed with great prosperity, although he has renounced all his worldly riches. So just incidentally, I mentioned this because this is the way in which I wanted to give you a glimpse of how Swami Nambillai has given unique, pioneering interpretations to the Ramayana, though there are several Sanskrit commentators who have given wonderful interpretations. So my father used to very often say that these type of interpretations that are exclusively available in the Sri Vaishnava commentaries should be made known to people all over the world who can understand these things. Because the literary world, even in India, those who are not exposed to the Sri Vaishnava interpretations do not know about these unique, wonderful interpretations. So he used to say, this should be one of the most important projects, namely contribution of the Sri Vaishnava commentators to Sanskrit literature. Generally, we say Sanskrit literature has contributed to all Indian language literatures, which is 200% true. But Sri Vaishnava commentary, Sri Vaishnava literature has also contributed to the interpretation of Sanskrit literature, which is totally unknown to people all over the world, especially even Indians. So this was one of his most important projects that he wanted to execute in his lifetime, which he used to keep telling me several times. We will see if God wills, it will happen. But today the problem is nobody even knows what is the general ordinary interpretation of the Ramayana or the special interpretations. When they are unaware about these things only, how can they be made aware of these unique or pioneering wonderful interpretations? They don't know what Ramayana is. They don't know what are the nuances of the meanings of the Ramayana. When that itself is unknown, how can they actually talk about these things or know about these things? So that is the example. That is the example of Lakshmana, who is mentioned as Lakshmano Lakshmi Sampanna, because in Shri Vaishnava literature there is a word called Kainkarya Shri, or the prosperity of Kainkarya. Performing all types of Kainkarya or servitude unto the Lord itself is the greatest prosperity. So that is why it says, Volivil Kalam, without any gap. Even for one moment, there should be no gap in performing service to the Supreme Lord. And that is well enshrined in the character of Lakshmana, who is found to be doing so in the Ramayana, which is the Itihasa Shrestha, according to Pidilokacharya, who has authored this work also. So in the Srivachana Bhushanam, he says, Itihasa Shrestha Mama Ramayana. There are two Itihasas, namely Ramayana and Mahabharata. Among them, Ramayana is very exalted. Of course, Mahabharata is also equally exalted. That's a different thing. But he says, Itihasa Shrestha Mama Ramayana. That means Ramayana is the most exalted Itihasa. But when we talk of Mahabharata, that is also in another way most exalted. So that doesn't reduce the credit given to Mahabharata. One should not think like that. But when we see the greatness of Ramayana, we see that several Sri Vaishnava values are espoused in a unique and extensive and exhaustive manner in the Ramayana. That is why in the 36,000 commentary and in all commentaries, even here, we see that Ramayana is quoted extensively, much more than Mahabharata is quoted. The commentary on Tirupavai, or all commentaries on all the Divya Prabandhams of all the Alvas, the Ramayana is the most important work that is quoted across the commentaries. So you can imagine how great a place or how great a place Ramayana commands as far as Sri Vaishnava literature and Sri Vaishnava philosophy is concerned. So ultimately what happens? It is the character of Lakshmana that is the model of performing Kainkarya. So it is said that, although it is not mentioned in the Ramayana specifically, in Valmiki Ramayana specifically, he did not sleep even for one moment all the 14 years because he was taking care of Rama and Sita for 13 years, together for 13 years. And the abduction of Sita happened in the beginning of the 14th year. So even then, after Sita was abducted also, he accompanied Rama and he never slept for 14 years at all, which is a very, very, very great thing to do, very great Kainkarya, which is most difficult to do because we cannot resist sleep even for one day. Many a times we cannot even sleep in the afternoon. So doing it for one day or 2 days is greatly taxing for the body. It cannot happen. So food and sleep are two most important and unavoidable aspects that are required to sustain life in the body. So that is why Volivil Kalamellam Udanaimani. It means Sarvadesha, Sarvakala, Sarvavastha. So in all places, because wherever Rama went, during his 14 years, he visited several ashramas of the rishis, which are all given in the beginning of the Aranyakanda. Why it's not given in a great elaboration is a great mystery, for which and a very unique and secret answer has been explained by my Acharya. It's not pertinent here. And then Rama visits Kishkindha, then he visits Lanka. So Sarva Desha, Sarva Kala. And in all states, when Rama is sad due to the abducting of Sita, Lakshmana consoles him. When Rama is actually angry with his father Dasharatha in the Ayodhya Kanda, Lakshmana consoles him. When Rama becomes greatly angry when Sita, as soon as Sita is abducted, and he actually raises his bow and arrow and says, I am going to destroy the entire world because Sita has been separated from me. Lakshmana pacifies him. And he says, are you going to make the entire world perish due to the bad deed of one person, namely Ravana? Is it right on your part? So he actually counsels Rama. All these are different types of kainkariya. Who can think about these things? He consoles Rama, he pacifies Rama, he supports Rama. He also counsels him by actually praying to him, no, please tone down your anger. Please give up your anger. I will fall at your feet. And he prostrates before him, and then Rama immediately is pacified. But the question may arise as to, is it right on part of Rama to have done so? Even to have thought of destroying the entire world or universe, unable to overcome the anger of Sita being abducted. That answer is different. That is to be dealt with separately. But ultimately, this is how Sri Vaishnava commentators have given unique interpretations about the different aspects of the great Sanskrit works like Ramayana. And that is what is mentioned as the model of Nammalvar, of the words mentioned by Nammalvar, which is quoted in the Sutra number 112, which says, ஒழிவில் காலமெல்லாம் உடனாய் மன்னி என்று ஒழிவில்லாத காலமெல்லாம். So without any gap in time, in all sarvadeshathilum udanai, that means in various forms, and sarvavasthayalilum piriyada nindri. So the Lakshmana is not separate from Rama even for one moment. At least Sita was separated from Rama during the wars or battles Rama had with the 14 Rakshasas, then 14,000 demons, etc. But Lakshmana was never separated from Rama and Sita or Rama for the entire 14 years, even for one moment. Therefore, Sarva Deshathilum, Sarva Kalathilum, Sarvavasthairam Nadandishalum. Especially when the person becomes a Muktatma, or he becomes liberated, then there is no problem at all. That is why in the beginning of the Mumuksupadi it was said, Muktarkum Nityarkum Apekshitam Kainkarya Virodhi Kainkarya Hani Apekshitam Kainkarya Vriddhi. What do the liberated souls and the ever liberated souls, known only as Nitya Muktas, what do they want and what do they dislike? They want to have more and more and more servitude. And what they dislike is absence of servitude unto the Lord, even for one moment. So this is the essence of the mantram. That's what Kulalokacharya says in this sutra. Ivvadi Medan, sutra number 112. Ozhivil kalamillam udanai manni enjirapadiye sarvadesha sarvakala sarvavasthaninum anuvartikkum. And then three more sutras remain in the Tirumantra Prakarana, that is the chapter on Tirumantra. Kulalokacharya says, Ettilayai moondru sharadai iruppadoru mangala sutram pode Tirumantram. So this Tirumantra is like a Mangala Sutra, which has 8 strands and 3 types or 3 threads. 8 strands and 3 threads. 3 threads. It's a Mangala Sutra. So what does Mangala Sutra actually signify? In what context it is tied to the bride by the bridegroom, etc. And also how it is comparable to the Tirumantra. All these things we will see in the next class. So today we have seen the extensive exposition of, or heard the extensive exposition of the Sutra number 112, which can be said the essence of Tirumantra. Thank you very much. I conclude with these words.
So Swami Govindadas is saying, forgive me if I misunderstood, this is in the chat. From my understanding, you said that the Jivatman can take many unlimited bodies to offer Kainkariam to the Supreme Lord. Do you mean simultaneously? And if so, how is it possible that we understand from the Bhagavad Gita that the Jiva cannot be cut into pieces?
So this question is raised in the, this is a Jivatma can possess multiple bodies, not in this world, but in the Vaikuntha that I am mentioning. That is one important aspect. Second thing is, there is a story in the Ramayana of a great sage called Saubhari. So this sage, so the story goes like this. The sage was actually performing his penance in a place. At that time, what happened? A great king called Kushanabha had 50 daughters. So how can a person have 50 daughters, etc.? That might be, that's a different question. But this is how the story goes. So the 50 daughters were passing by. And when they saw the sage, in those days, I am telling you, you have to underline this word, these words in those days, that all the 50 daughters fell in love with the sage called Saubhari. So this is one of the interpretations, let us say. So when all the 50 daughters want to marry Saubhari, how can they marry one person? Of course, 50 wives he may have had in according to those days. But they wanted Saubhari, or for each daughter wanted Saubhari for her husband exclusively to herself. Then this problem arose, and how is it that he can marry 50 people and simultaneously live with them? Then when the king posed this challenge to Saubhari Maharshi, or the sage Saubhari, he said, no problem, I'll take 50 bodies and I'll live exclusively with all the 50 daughters of yours. That is how one interpretation of the Ramayana goes. So, it is said that he came to possess 50 bodies simultaneously. So then is the question, then the question is asked, how can the Atma be cut into 50? That is how Sri Sundar Gopal Das Ji has asked this question. So Atma is atomic in nature according to Vishishtadvaita philosophy. So there is no question of cutting, etc. Then logically also the question is asked, how can one Atma possess 50 bodies simultaneously at the same time? Then the answer given is as follows. So in this human body, which is now, my Atma is one and I am possessing this body. So one Atma can be associated with only one body at a time, simultaneously. But here also what happens, I will say, I am experiencing pain in my head, I am experiencing pain in my feet, I am experiencing pain in my hand. So how is this possible? then the answer given is the Atma possesses an attribute called jnana or cognition or consciousness. It is known as dharma bhuta jnana or attributive consciousness. Atma is of the nature of light or consciousness. He also possesses consciousness. Just like now you have a lamp. It is of the nature of light. And it also possesses light as an attribute because it helps people see other things. That means if you place the lamp in the middle of a room, it will illuminate all the objects that are there in the room. So we say that it possesses light as its nature, and also it possesses light as its attribute. Similarly, this Jivatma possesses consciousness as its nature. It's of the nature of consciousness. And also it possesses consciousness as an attribute. So that attribute, we call it as attributive consciousness in philosophical parlance, which is known as dharma bhuta jnana. So the Atma, which is atomic in nature, though it resides in the heart region, the consciousness that is its attribute pervades the entire body. Therefore, even ordinary people like me or you or any other person, don't mistake me for calling you an ordinary person. The average person, I am telling, can experience pain or happiness throughout the body due to the consciousness, the attributive consciousness of the Jivatma pervading the entire body. This is true with regard to all human beings and even animals. So in the case of the sage Saubhari, in this world, I am telling, itself, due to his special prowess attained by means of his penance, he could take 50 bodies at the same time. And his attributive consciousness pervaded all the 50 bodies. Though his original soul rested in one particular original body, he could take 50 more bodies or 49 more bodies, as the case may be, which were all pervaded by his dharma bhuta jnana or attributive consciousness, due to which all the bodies were as the original sage Saubhari's body. So when it is possible in this manner, in this world itself, why is it not possible in the Vaikuntha, when it is said that the attributive consciousness become vibhu or universal? It's not even limited to Vaikuntha. It is it pervades even the Leela Vibhuti or this entire universe or all the universes. So the philosophical or logical interpretation given is Atma is not cut because it cannot be cut. Achedyoyam madahyoyam akledyaha asheshyame ashoshyame vacha. It cannot be dried, it cannot be cut, it cannot be made wet, it cannot be burnt. So when such is the case, by means of the attributive consciousness which pervades all the other bodies, several number of bodies can be taken. I hope I have answered your question. Had you, Keshwadasji, had you heard this interpretation earlier, which was given by Swami Nambillai for the verses of the Ramayana?
No, I hadn't. So he wrote a whole commentary on the Ramayana?
No, while actually
or he just mentioned that part, those verses in the Ramayana. I had heard those verses before.
While commenting upon the Tiruvai of Nammalvar,
okay,
the Ramayana verses are quoted and commented upon in this unique manner in several places. And then even the next
it comes in Idu.
Yes, he did. Yes. And even later, the Periyavachavan Pillai, who succeeded Nampillai after Vadakuthiravedi Pillai, has written a treatise called Ramayana Tanishloka. So he has commented upon the most important individual shlokas. Tani means individual. So he has commented upon the individual shlokas of Ramayana in this manner. So that is also very unique and most attractive and enjoyable. So that is why my father used to say, the Sri Vaishnava commentary tradition is so rich and unique that though it is universally accepted and it's a fact that Sanskrit literature has contributed to all Indian literatures, all Indian language literatures like Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, etc. In the Tamil literature or the interpretation in Tamil or Manipravala language of the Sri Vaishnava commentators has contributed greatly to Sanskrit literature. It is generally not known or acknowledged or not even enjoyed by people in India also, by and large.
So as you say, it needs to be spread all over the world, and I think it needs to be translated.
Dramam jetyesha chatura chaturakshari kamavastham prapadyante jantavo hantamadrisha punyam bhoja vikasaya papadvan takshayaya cha Shriman avirabhut bhumau Ramanuja Divakaraha Trinikrita Virinchari Nirankusha Vibhutayah Ramam Japanam Bhoja Samashrena Sharinaha.